Welcome to Beyond Names. I'm Dr. Habib. This is a space for spiritual seekers and soulful misfits, for the curious and the committed, for those grounded in the tradition, and for those who aren't sure what they believe. Whether you call the divine God, Yahweh, Allah, Elohim, Hashem, Brahman, Great Spirit, higher power, or you're still searching for language that fits, you are welcome here. Together, we'll explore the intersection of spirituality and daily life, the wisdom of many traditions, and the ways we return to our true selves, to our source, to the light that each of us carry within. I'm so glad you're here. Let's begin with introduction of our conversation partner for this episode, Abdul-Karim Pinckney. Abdul-Karim is a musical artist, former imam, and spiritual thinker. He has previously been on Beyond Names to share and talk about his albums, Project Inspire and Manipulations of the Unreal. He is joining us this episode to talk about his latest, his unreleased single, Here We Go Again. To learn more about Abdul-Karim and his work, please visit themanofreal.net and cultivatemercy.com. Abdul-Karim, thank you for being here.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be on with you.
So I understand that this latest song is in reflection to what's happening in the world today. So, shall we start with hearing it and then let the conversation unfold from there?
Sure, let's do it. Let me bring it up.
Okay.
We starting wars, preemptive strikes on other countries. Here we go again,
Singing the same old song.
here we go again,
I'm wondering what's really going on.
here we go again,
Doing the same old thing.
here we go again.
I'm wondering when will we stand for change.
The beating the drums of war, emotions run high. I done seen this play before. It's monotonous, bread and circus for the populace. They're not hiding this. Wanna cause the apocalypse. They got a lot of us, hopeless and distraught. Politicians blackmailed and they're bought. No leaders, not enough followers. It doesn't seem to bother us. Waiting for death to swallow us. What happened? I'm asking religious factions, but no answers, just spiritual bypassing. How do we prepare without falling to despair? I'm starting to wonder, does anybody care? God is wired to a normalcy bias, but where you smell smoke, there's most likely fire. It's a rarity, the calm and my clarity. This life not parody. Is anybody hearing me? Here we go again.
Singing the same old song.
Here we go again.
I'm wondering what's really going on.
Here we go again.
Doing the same old thing.
Here we go again.
I'm wondering when will we stand for change.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was a false flag and people blame Muslims for whatever went bad. Or a different situation. They had enough of the lies, resist manipulation. I could only hope though, don't go loco. Jump into conclusions, intellectual pogo, villainize us, seek to dehumanize us. Maybe we won't fall for it, maybe we rise up. See what God makes and what man chooses. Think before we act and don't stand foolish. Close the door to the cause of war, don't ignore. We all saw it before. Here we go again.
Singing the same old song.
Here we go again.
I'm wondering what's really going on.
Here we go again.
Doing the same old thing.
Here we go again.
I'm wondering when will we stand for change.
What do you think is the most important lyric in that song?
Mm, Close the door to the cause of war. I mean, And for on a more personal note, and the beginning of the second part was something that really resonated with me, and there was a almost hastefulness with wanting to release this, but as you said, and I told you, it's unreleased. I try not to move with haste, but the reality of just the feeling of the possibility of what I said, a false flag that happens and Muslims end up getting blamed for it. And, or, like I said, a different situation because it's happened before where people had enough of the lies and resist the manipulation, which would actually be something interesting to see. But those two were real, I think, pertinent because we need each other. And this war is a divisive action, and there's a lot of emotions around things. And if we can remain cool and witness what's being said in front of us, it doesn't it makes sense, and at the same time, it doesn't make sense to be in war.
Mm. Yeah. You know, I wonder how many people even understand what a false flag is or um, have any conception of the possibility of a false flag being something that our government is a part of. I mean, I just think of my neighbors. I think of my family. Uh, and I think uh, that's just way outside of anything that is the paradigm that they operate in.
Yeah, we entertain ourselves with the notion a lot in Hollywood, though. There's tons of movies where, a false flag was the government, let's just say, attacks its own land or own people in
Yeah,
order to blame someone else to be able to make initiatives and move laws or cause wars and different things like that. I mean, there's certain people that not I'm not well versed in this area like political espionage and things like this. There's just a light flavoring that I've had experience with where just certain figures, I mean, some people talk about, I mean, there's always conspiracy around like JFK and Martin Luther King, being assassinated was or the Lyndon B. Johnson and the things that he said, and the FBI following him, Martin Luther King specifically, and people talking, giving him a holiday and saying he's this big peacemaker, but he wasn't seen like that while he was living,
right.
not by our government and a lot of the people.
You know, in a recent episode, I had a conversation in which the conversation partner, Kathy Antunes, um, was said, we have not reckoned in this country with our history. Oh, why are you?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that kind of goes. I mean, just recently, the UN resolution to acknowledge the slave trade as one of the greatest crimes against humanity, and the U.S. was against that recognition. And they can say because of reparation language, but there's just like there is. I mean, in removing certain textbooks and classes out of colleges, and it's not something foreign for me. Like, wow, when you said that and I smile, my wife sometimes says that I have a wild sense of humor. Like, as I laugh at truthful things, my laugh sometimes is a laugh of recognition, not necessarily like,
Yeah.
folly or something, but it's that good for my life. That kind of goes without saying. It's and there's a I don't know. It's weird because people want to be proud about things in history, but don't want to carry the same acknowledgement for things that are shameful about the history. And you can recognize that, but at the same time, it's you're connecting yourself to the past with something to be proud about. But
Right.
because you didn't do whatever, the negatives, you don't want to connect to that because yeah. And that's why for me, it's like in the song when I said, this monotonous, this is this repetition of going to war, or people need to be free and we need to be the world police to go freedom. And the people that we're going against are actually dictators that we set up. But like it's just, or not we, but the government set up. We got Libya, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, and
Right.
there's a whole list of places. It's there's an unfortunate, and I think we talked about it the last time with even the hardships people are going through and the awareness around the misuse of power and injustice with ICE and different things like that.
Mhm.
For me, people will say like, oh, the misuse of force, people killed on the street, unarmed, some armed, but not in any danger, endangering the police
Mhm.
and or the ICE, and it's like these kind of sound like echoes that I've heard from my people since I can
Mhm.
remember. So
Mhm.
there's a weird dynamic where yes, it's still bad, it's heinous, but for us it's like now we get looked at weird for not jumping on the bandwagon that we actually started a long time ago. And so the trauma of being on the opposite side of it and then kind of either developing thick skin
Mhm.
or just dealing with it. Now you kind of looked at sideways for not jumping even more so on being loud about the things, the situation that's going on. It's like, well, we were already using our voice, and now it matters more because whether it's the use of cameras are more present or a different demographic is feeling the blunt of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that I mean, I know you well enough to know that when you say it's monotonous, that in no way is that minimizing the horror or the loss of life. And as you said, you use the word repetition. What you're getting to is the repetitious nature of the of this action on the part of our government. And I want to speak to that because I just think a variety of reasons. But just as we were talking about and making reference to not making, um, not resolving our history as a country and addressing that properly, um, it's it's absolutely sort of mind-boggling to think about the fact that the native indigenous population was reduced by 96%. You know, like it's mind-boggling to think about the hundreds of thousands of people, if not even a larger number, that were enslaved. It's inconceivable, really, without like actually making a list, to even just think about all of the countries that the United States has bombed since World War II. Um, so Japan, Korea, China, Indonesia, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Pakistan, Iraq, Kuwait, Lebanon, Iran, Yemen, Syria, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bosnia, um, Herzegovina, Yugoslavia, Congo, Libya. Somalia, Guatemala, Cuba, Grenada, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Panama. Like that is this is what our country has done since 1945.
Yeah.
So
I mean, go
I just
ahead.
had to say that because of your use of that lyric that you're
Yeah, yeah. That's just the repetition. And, you know, even us as Americans, have to realize that, how we speak about we're all connected, not just us as American, but on the world stage, that our lifestyle contributes to inequality and injustice. Like we're blind. Like every day, like we're aware of a lot more going on in the world. But I believe every day of our life we could be conscious of some wild violation, not that we're doing, but that exists in the world. And
Mhm.
then when I say our lifestyle, just the industrialization age, how much justice do the people who harvest the food, like how much are they being paid for how much goes into just one can of, say, a canned string beans? How much energy goes into that one can to be put on the shelf for it to cost $1.99 or 79 cents?
Right.
And so you have the people harvesting, you have the truck drivers, the way they're treated. There's a whole list, and we're not usually conscious of it, but there's a whole lot nationally that there's injustice and internationally with sweatshops and people just our system of living is like is a kind of cancer to the earth in one way, and we benefit in other ways, but it's hard to come to terms with, and that again points to like resolving our history. Can
Right.
we just be honest about it? Like if we want to take an hour shower, like we just sit there and like, oh, and just let the water run, wasting it when you just should just
Yeah.
wash up and get out. Like I was when I went to Mauritania taking a bucket shower, like that's
Right.
really the amount of water you needed to wash up, but we get into this luxurious, and it's from people that don't have a lot to people that do have a lot, and
Yeah.
it's we be honest with ourselves and just say yes, I too have contributed, not directly, not
Mhm.
consciously, but just my being is that part of it, and being humble enough to own up to it. That takes a lot.
Right. Yeah. Are you participating in fast fashion? Just as a like a simple everyday example. Are you
Yeah.
participating in fast fashion? Are you, are you wasteful with your water usage?
Mhm.
I have to add that 30, this is a statistic of, I think maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, but 33% of Americans are cutting back on food, utilities, and prescriptions because of the cost of healthcare. And this is before, we've had this increase in gas prices because of our most recent choice to
Endeavors.
participate with Israel in bombing Iraq.
Yeah.
I mean, Iran, excuse me.
And
So we are participating collectively and individually in injustice. And I think that something that we need to hold in our consciousness is this relationship between injustice and uh well it's for today and for the purposes of this single, here we go again, war. So for this discussion, there is a relationship between injustice and war and what it takes to create change on a large scale. Do you have any Any thoughts on that?
I don't have any idea as far as large scale. Like
Um,
to be honest, I don't really my like I say, cultivating mercy one heart at a time is kind of my phrase
mm,
with cultivate mercy. So I think each individual starting with ourselves first to be
yeah.
able to acknowledge, to be able to just have an awareness, a more clear awareness of the playing field, our participation, and then also having mercy for ourselves because we didn't start any of these systems and we didn't choose to go to war and all of these different things, but we're here nonetheless. And so knowing that we are limited, so choose where we can make a difference and step by step as you are able to sustainably make a difference in your own individual life with the choices you make of whether what kind of clothes and where you shop and conscious uh, consumer consciousness, however it is, conserving water usage, um, and being able, I think really now, especially as specifically with this war stuff, is can we really connect to each other? Because in my just recent conversations, if people are holding certain points of views that is really is they putting trust in something that has proven to be untrustworthy. So I'll
Mm,
just say, for example, the screen or the media portrayal of, let's say, Muslims or somebody you've never met,
right,
anybody that you've
right.
never actually physically interacted with, and you
Right.
use what you see on the screen as an accurate representation of them, that's already starting off on the wrong foot because
Right.
there's been so much. I mean, once you get to know people, but the courage it takes to get over your own prejudices and judgment. I'm talking from my own experience. Just, I'll give a good example, and you can ask whatever. When I lived in Pennsylvania, um, I had gotten notice for delivery that was supposed to come in, some stuff from for Cultivate Mercy, and I never saw it at my doorstep. And this is, I was living off the farm, not in that area, but not far from it. So I didn't really know anybody. It was just
Mm,
me and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to go knock on somebody's door and see if they got my package. And it's like, I'm the only black person here. And it just, these thoughts, these are real human thoughts that go
sure.
on. And
Yeah.
so it was close to Maghrib. So, that for people that don't know, sunset. And I was like, I was gonna go across the street. And I actually went across the street and I looked and I was like, it's kind of dark. I don't know if they got ring cameras and, it's just a different environment. I was like, I think I'll wait until the next day when the sun is bright and, you can see I'm not a threat or you can at least just see me. Like,
Right.
so,
Right.
uh, and it turned out, mashallah, that it was just because we had a long driveway. It was somewhere that normally they don't deliver, but it was still on the
Mm,
property. So I was able to get it. But I was just conscious of all of my own inner dialogue as
right.
I was going to it. And can people overcome their own? Because that's all it is your conversation. I had no proof that these people were mean or if they were racist or anything. Some people told me something about some neighbors, but I didn't have the experience to come to the conclusion myself. And
Right.
so, can we do that in order to connect? Because that's the currency of the day. The
Mm,
money, if we do come into hard times, we're going to need each other. We're not going to be this no man is the island. We can't survive individually. It'll
right.
run out or other things. I don't want to paint negative scenarios.
Well, I appreciate you bringing it and making it very individual. I think I've mentioned before the idea of the 3 feet around you. I've heard Reverend Gregory C. Ellison II um, talk about, he's the guy who wrote Fearless Dialogues, um, and talk about the wisdom from his grandmother or from his auntie, or I can't remember which it was, but it was, in my memory, it was him saying he was on the front porch and asking, a loved one, either his grandmother or his auntie, like, how do we change the world? And her advice was, don't worry about the world, worry about the 6 feet around you.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that there's that aspect of like, what do we do with our own hearts and if and
Uh-huh.
in our own um, daily life, our activities of our daily life. And I love the examples of the showering and how you spend your money, how you shop, where you shop, um, food, clothes, everything, all of that. And I think when you have something as big as a war, as one country attacking another country, that there is an invitation for change on a larger level, that there's an invitation to change for the collective. There's an
Mhm.
invitation for a consciousness, a change in consciousness, a change of awareness that is a lot of individuals. Um, and and I suppose that we don't have any way of knowing whether something as horrific, and in this case as global, of as the impacts of the US and Israel bombing Lebanon, um, and Iran, like, we don't really have any way of knowing, is this going to result in an increase in our consciousness of our interconnection, of our that we're all brothers and sisters in humanity. Um, so, with that said, um, beyond the things that you talked about in terms of the individual actions, what do you think is ours to do to be to to do our part of that greater level of consciousness or that greater level of awareness or that um,
There can be a shift. Uh, I wrestle with this because,
mm,
let's say on a systemic level, we can, get together and, you know, let your voice be heard by your local and state representatives
mhm,
of things you would like to see as a representation of yourself in America as an American citizen.
right.
And that's one thing for me personally. I really don't have large scale hope like that
Mm,
because um I just don't see, and this is only I know it's a minuscule perception amongst many. I don't see the connectivity from the people and the government.
mhm,
I don't really see in let's say what this term they like to use now, pattern recognition. I don't see the pattern where people who have collectively, like, we could use something I was gonna say ancient, but long ago, like the Alabama bus boycott to
mm,
enact some sort of change. I don't see that level of unity in people to make a self-sacrifice to walk to work or do something big. Like, okay, we're just not going to go to work. Because usually people say in these movements, you have to show them in their pockets. Like the people who have the actual
right.
power and influence, you have to hit their pockets for them to even notice you. Like you can use your voice. And I used to say, if playing basketball, because I, used to be athletic with basketball. When
Mhm,
you are in the, or you're not the home team, you're playing away,
mhm,
and you're say at the foul line, and the people are saying, miss the shot, miss, and they're chanting against you. You're not, if your objective is to hit the goal and make the free throw, you're not paying attention to what they're saying.
Right.
And, they are playing, they have goals and initiatives that we may not be aware of. So we can talk all we want. It's like the crowd talking to someone at the free throw line. It's just if you get to the point, it's just background noise. It's not
Mm.
something that's actually going to make you say, oh, they have a point. Like so Sada Shakur had a saying that is not too. I'm not really. I mean, it seems to be truthful that power never changes. I can't remember. It's something to the point of power not changing through peaceful means, like that people don't
Mm.
let go of their power except through confrontation. I don't necessarily buy that in this dynamic because again, I keep coming circling back to lack of unity amongst people in order to see a commonality. Like maybe if things do get bad and gas prices get crazy, the food
Mhm.
starts to be expensive and people can't afford things, then maybe enough people will get impacted to say, no, wait, this is enough. And then how do you enact? Because this is a good, because somebody, man, this is something to your point. Somebody put a comment on a real live watching. It was like, Americans, what are you doing? Why are you allowing your government to do these types of things? And I
Mhm.
replied to them. I said, I don't know what your thought of America is like as far as us as citizens and people, whether you think like we're unified. One, do you think we're well informed? Two, and what level of influence do you see beyond just like, the skeleton of how the governmental system is supposedly supposed to work according to the layout versus how it actually works? Like I said,
Right.
I don't know what is it that you see? Who are you talking to when you say America? Is it just like a abstract figure? Like, what is the concept in your mind that you think is going to be like, oh yeah, we should all just riot or some crazy, like, what is it? What do people think on the large? I have no answer for that. Like large scale, I have no answer because I just don't see how. Like they have movies about the Civil War and some other. There was another movie about just this type of stuff and how we don't necessarily need to be attacked. We'll attack each other if we're left alone to our paranoia.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I have no answer for that.
I have to say
Do
that,
you?
do I? Is that just,
Yeah. Any projection of how? Because that's something that's always baffled me on large scale.
well, I don't know, but there's a couple things that I think of. I mean, I think that having these kind of conversations is an important part of it. I think inviting people to a greater level of consciousness, a greater level of awareness. Um, I think inviting people to consider information and perspectives that they just are unfamiliar with. I know in this country, depending on, and I suppose this is true in many countries, but depending on where you get your information, you get presented vastly different perspectives. And I mean, I would say that we are living in a time of rampant falsehood,
Oh,
where the level of deceitfulness is just so. So I think part of it is speaking truth. Because I do believe that if enough people speak the truth, there are some people who will remain closed because they don't want to hear it. But I think that there are other people where it'll hit something within them and it'll shift something internally. Will there? where they will recognize that as truth and go, oh, that sounds true, or oh, that feels true. And so that there will be a certain level of awakening or increased awareness happening. Uh, so those things, I also think, and I'll be completely honest, where I live, I send my messages to my representatives and senator, and where I live, it's an exercise in it feels, I should say, I feel I experience it as an exercise in futility, right?
Mhm.
Because it seems as if these are not that the officials by whom I am currently represented, theoretically,
Yeah.
are not in, they don't in from all appearances, they appear to not operate as individuals, as thinking individuals. They seem to
Mhm.
operate only as um I mean, almost like robots doing what they're told by an unnamed individual.
Yeah.
It's like there's no room for thinking about the party line, whether there's truth in the party line, whether there's justice, whether there's compassion, whether there's kindness, whether there's equity. Like it just seems like there's no room for that. Um, and so it definitely does feel like it doesn't know it feels as if it doesn't matter how many times I vote. It feels like it doesn't matter how many times I email. It doesn't matter how many times I pick up the phone. But I have to tell myself, okay, what are organizations that are participating in making a change? And so I do think about the areas of the country where they are electing officials who do seem to be intellectually engaged,
Mhm.
as well as heartfully engaged with a level of consciousness that you don't see in other elected officials. And so I have
Mhm.
to say, okay, there's hope because if this person can get elected here in this part of the country, it's possible then that a similar kind of consciousness can be elected in another part of the country. Uh,
Mhm.
so, of course, I think of the example of nonviolent resistance. I
Mhm.
think of the Women's March, how the community in Minnesota really came together, and we've seen this in places like Portland, in Minneapolis, where very diverse groups of people, come together and accomplish great things. Uh, we see it in organizations like Braver Angels, which is around having conversations across political divides. We see it in organizations like New Ground, which is an organization that brings um, persons who are Muslim and persons who are Jewish together. Um, we see it in organizations like Jewish Voice for Peace, uh, the Council for what is CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. I think that's
Yeah.
the acronym, um, and how they are engaged in trying to speak up on social media, speak up in the media that they can. They have a Hollywood uh, division where they're engaged in saying, this depiction of Muslims is absolutely not only offensive but completely false. I mean, so there's that multi-level, multi-prong engagement. Um, so I don't know. Those are just some thoughts on.
Yeah, no, like, and then the line in the song, politicians blackmailed and they're bought. And then the next line is big for me because it's just the experiences I had with no leaders, not enough followers. Now, obviously, that's a generalization. We do have leaders out there, but
Yeah.
seeing follower like the level I don't like whether there's a lack of leadership or a lack of followership where some places they say everybody's a leader and chaos comes out of that kind of thought process and because you don't have any structure. This is a world that the heart is in the body and the body is a structure, so it protects all. You have a rib cage, and so you just the willingness to follow somebody. I don't, in my just menial conversations with people and listening to discussions happen that I may not even be a part of,
Mhm.
just to follow, having the humility to follow someone is not at a high level. And when there is somebody in leadership, the level of criticism that comes out and all of these different movements I've heard shadows of things, and I'm like, are we expecting an angel to be in power, like or leadership like this?
Mhm.
You have to allow some level of humanity when there are
Mhm.
no more prophets. Like there's no more prophets, and
Right.
it's hard to in that dynamic. I haven't seen a healthy balance in my experience in different communities and organizations I've been a part of.
Mhm.
I haven't, except for once, and I always go back to that. I don't know what they're doing now, but my the first community I was a part of
Mhm.
was my beacon of hope, and it was kind of a shock after I left there because I thought that's just what it was, how it was to be in community and Muslims and stuff, and
Mhm.
there was so many people, different ethnicities, different age groups, and
Yeah.
working together to come together and hand in hand and making things happen and leadership giving the community a voice to listen to what they wanted and the community respecting the leadership enough to when they said no, we're not going to do X, Y, and Z, to say
Mhm.
okay and submit to that. And when I seen that, I was like, subhanallah. And then mashallah, I'm talking about the old Zaytuna Institute when it was in Hayward. Like now,
Mhm.
mashallah, it's a part of Berkeley College, and it's the first accredited Islamic college in America on a Berkeley's campus. And
Right.
to me, that's a kind of a testimony as to how it started and how organic it was, where there was that balance. Then I
Mhm.
left there, and I was thrown into a sea of otherness, other experiences that
Yeah.
was very shocking to me, and so I don't know. I've only had that one example, and that was 25 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. But I also went to Zaytuna College, so Zaytuna College is getting a little free commercial here on this on this in this episode. I was just there for a language intensive, a summer language intensive,
uh,
and it was so refreshing to be in a community with people who are very devoted to living their religion, to embodying the values and virtues of Islam. Um, and, I don't know that I have ever experienced the level of politeness, of courtesy, of, of just like the way people conducted themselves. I don't know that I've ever experienced that anywhere else the way I experienced it at Zaytuna College.
Alhamdulillah, I wish to go and experience what it's become because I know what it was like in the beginning, and now it's in a whole different, in Berkeley. So inshallah, I get to experience. But I'm happy to hear that you had that experience as well.
Yeah, that was probably 2014 or so, somewhere around there. Yeah,
Okay.
but that was my experience. Um, so I think that as much as we can do our own individual work in terms of our own individual contemplation and cultivating peace and mercy and compassion and love in our own hearts, um, embodying that in our individual actions, like we talked about earlier, but also participating in community, because in being in a relationship with each other, we are revealing who we are to ourselves and to each other. And we find out
Yeah,
where our rough spots are, like where we need
yeah,
some more work. But it's also an opportunity for us to engage in collective action when we're in that kind of community that is committed to truth, is committed to mercy, is committed to honoring human rights, basic human right to life, to clothing, to shelter, to food, to clean water, just like that is committed to equity, which is committed to respect, committed to dignity, to be parts of community where those are shared values, and then to act collectively um, in whatever ways are possible. Um,
mhm.
whether that's nonviolent demonstrations, whether it's um, marching on the Capitol, whether it's showing up and going to visit the offices of your elected representatives, whether it's doing massive campaigning and trying to put different people in the electoral process, whatever
Mhm.
it might be. I think all of that's I think all of that is worthwhile and important. And I think we all have to ask ourselves, like, where am I standing? What am I doing? What's mine to do? You know, and
And I think you're also doing your part with having these podcasts, mashallah, to get just the awareness out there. Because that's another venue that, you can see that, reaching people's social media. It doesn't, it's good to, I think it's more paramount to have within your physical grasp, but also within what I call like the noosphere out there, to be a voice in the void that is the internet towards
yeah,
something positive and just reflection or awareness.
yeah, yeah. Well, any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Uh, Seeing where we can be honest within ourselves and taking that out, like, because when I was talking about, developing our own and understanding our own self, that's just the first step. Then it's taking it out amongst the world and being in the world, getting out of our own individualized living where we go to work, come from work, and we might sit down and just veg out on the TV or the doom scrolling and stuff like that. How can we take our movement to make connections to create these communal movements? Because
Yeah,
it's each one teach one. It takes one, and then from that one another one, and then a bunch of ones become a group. But we have to be willing to take that step. And inshallah, I'm also offering a class for this called the
mhm,
Discipline of Clarity. And inshallah, that if people check cultivatemercy.com, that's starting April 25th.
mm,
And it's just a class on, if I say it simply, understanding the being of human being. And so anyone, whether it's beginner Muslims, so everyone's welcome, but it is grounded with Islamic wisdom. But the first is an 8 session course. The first 6 sessions, we're just talking about human experience. And I think everyone, regardless of label, can relate to
okay.
that.
Yeah. Well, once again, Abdul-Karim, thank you for the great conversation. Um, I just want to end with setting the intention that, may we all grow in peace. May we all grow in truth and awareness. And may the divine grant us mercy and right guidance.
If I just could add what I was sharing about how all of this array and injustice is that we all engage in, it's almost a sign that everything's not being held together by our choices.
Mm,
That there is a mercy that's making existence coherent, even with all of our foolishness. And
right.
that's something to think about.
Yes. That all of the human foolishness is still within is still within the umbrella of the divine mercy or the hands
Yeah.
of divine mercy. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Abdul Kareem. Thank you to all listeners for joining us on Beyond Names. Before we go, briefly, if you would pause and take one breath and reflect for just a moment on what stays with you from this conversation with Abdul-Karim Pinckney. And I gotta say, thank you for putting what's happening in the world today into and you're processing that and being with that into a song because I think so many people are really deeply struggling with what's happening in our lives and there's just so much suffering that's happening within our country and across the world, so thank you for doing that. When is the song Here We Go Again, when is it going to be released?
Inshallah, God willing, in 2 weeks.
In two
Um,
weeks Okay.
yeah. So probably
So
around the same time for the class, that for the Friday before the class or the 24th.
okay, so sometime around the 24th of April.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you again. May something you heard today help you reconnect with the light in your own heart. May you grow in compassion and clarity and courage and truth and awareness. May you find your way again and again back home to the divine, back home to yourself. If today's conversation spoke to you, please like, share, and comment on this episode. Please follow and subscribe to Beyond Names. Again, Abdul Karim, his music is on themanofreal.net, and he has an upcoming class in April called Discipline of Clarity, which is about understanding the being of human being, understanding human experience. And that's at cultivatemercy.com. To make an appointment with me, please visit habibboerger.com. Until next time, may you be light, may you consciously participate in growing your light, and may you share your light. Peace be with you.